My name is Shante Black. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the Jackson Medical Mall Foundation. I started here in 2005 as a temp employee from Will staff. It was 4 days before Hurricane Katrina hit, which devastated a lot of people's lives, and mine as well, because all the temps were sent home at that time. So over a 2-week period, I called back every day constantly asking if I could return to work because I was really in a bad place in my life. And from there, someone finally said, well, come on and come back. So I did. And from there is where my story began. When I was finally allowed to come back 2 weeks later after pestering them to allow me to come back to work, I worked really hard in housekeeping. I had never been a housekeeper before, but I did the housekeeping job and I took pride in the work that I was doing. A little ways down the road after working that job, I eventually came to understand that this wasn't what I wanted to do. That's when I eventually was moved up to the receptionist, and I just kind of waltzed into the executive director's office one day and said, hey, well, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Is there anything else that I can do? And they just so happened to have posted that position that day, so I eventually moved into that position. I started answering the phones, and I was sitting at that desk, and I don't want to just sit here and answer phones all day. So I would ask people all the time, well, what else can I do? Do you need me to stuff envelopes? Do you need me to put something in the mail? Anything. And so I began to kind of dabble a little bit into all of the different department duties when it was something that they needed help with. I did it from the front desk. And from there, I eventually joined the accounting team in accounts payable, and I went from there to the executive assistant and purchasing coordinator and leasing, and everything just kind of took off from there, and I started to learn things. When I first came here, I had dropped out of college 3 times, because it was really hard to work and go to school at the same time. So I would always lean more to, working because we needed to pay rent and I needed to eat and I had to have gas. So when I finally made it to the accounting team, I was able to actually go back to school. I got my degree here. My first degree was, of course, Bachelor's of Business Administration. And shortly after that, a few years later, I went back for my master's in Business Administration. So it was really the first time in my life that I was able to be stable enough to get that education. I basically wrapped my career and my school kind of together. You say, well, I'm working in an office, so let me take something that would help me to grow in that office setting. So that's why I basically chose business administration, because I liked working in the office, and I continued on and eventually was able to, manage some different departments. But at the end of the day, just, looking back on my whole journey with the medical mall, and even now, just looking back over my life, there's been always a connection to the Jackson Medical Mall, even from a child. I remember my uncle bringing me here when I was young and throwing pennies in the well, which is now our center stage that we rent for events. I remember getting a whipping in the Sunflower grocery store because I kept throwing my feet on the floor in front of the basket and making my uncle run into it. I learned how to drive in the parking lot when the building was an eyesore. I brought my grandmother here for doctor's appointments. I came here myself for doctor's appointments. I met my husband here as well, and we've been married now for 13 years. But it wasn't until now that I really look back over my life and I can really see that there has always been a connection. And the thing about that for me is, we never know, a lot of times even going in, that when we don't have a plan for our lives, we never know what it is that God has planned for us. And I truly feel like this has always been what has been planned for me. Advice that I would give to others looking to advance in their career is basically bloom where they're planted. We hear this all the time, but I don't think people really appreciate the process of what it takes to truly bloom. When you look at the growing process, you have to work the ground. You have to put the minerals and all the different nutrients in the ground for it to be even ready to receive a seed. Then you plant the seed, water the seed, you wait for it to grow. And then when you see the little leaf, a lot of times people think, well, I have progress, so now it's time for me to move on, or I'm ready. But that's really one of those times where people truly fail. So just sitting there and waiting until you really bloom full circle, and wait until someone sees what you're doing and sees that potential and kind of wait for you to get to that point where you're really truly ready to move. And it was some years in that I finally, found out that someone saw potential in me when I didn't see the potential myself. It was our executive director. When I finally started working in the office, and he finally told me a story about a night that he was doing a walkthrough and he saw everyone else was taking a break, but I was still washing windows, and I was washing those windows with everything I had because they had to be fingerprint free and spotless, for the people coming in the next day. So it's just been an amazing journey for me. I'm ready for this new chapter in my life. I'm hopeful that I can continue to grow the foundation financially, and with the help of the entire team and our executive director, hopefully we can continue to grow together.